Morning, Tom. Here we are back again for our second monthly review this time for November.
A cold lockdown month has flown by.
Yeah, it's freezing this morning. Yeah, so I've got a big jumper on. So have you.
Yeah. It's cold here in the shed. It's been. I feel like we've made it's been a month of pretty solid progress actually. A few things. The one that I think the real highlight for me is definitely, beginning constructive discussions and making some small steps forward with Future First.
Yes. So just for those who don't know what that is and what we're talking to them about, who are Future for? Well, if I do the Who are Future First very quickly, they're a charity that works with about 400 schools, isn't it? And they do other things, but one of the things that they do is they help schools manage their alumni networks.
Yeah, so I think I think partly as a result of Gatsby, the Sainsbury's funded Gatsby report that came out 10 years, I guess, or so ago, and then its subsequent sort of adoption into the national curriculum framework. Schools are having to think a lot more seriously about delivering some sort of alumni network for current pupils, and that's where Future First step in. They're a charity, and they offer a great software platform to Ormiston Denes, which is how we first met them, but like you say, to about 400 secondary schools, which is a fairly big chunk of the roughly 2,500 secondary schools that are in operation in the UK. So it's a good chunk of
number,
them. And we're hoping that the pilot project, which I guess we'll start probably now in the new year, we'll start with just 3 or 4 or 5 maybe, and take it from there. But I'm hopeful that that certainly they're full of enthusiasm, as am I, or as are we. And it's something that's going to really, I think it's sort of turbocharge our growth, but also really help us improve. Have some really, to have a great relationship to start with those schools, and for them to feel a little bit of ownership because it's part of that same platform. We'll get some quality feedback, which will help us improve the offering.
Definitely.
Particularly improving, I think, teacher support, so that we can really develop a pack and some documentation that helps turn the interviews into some sort of structured lesson plan.
And being able to be used in lessons, and people learning about work and careers. So it's great, and you've done some fantastic work, particularly, and that some of that's coming to bearing fruit, because we've got 3 or maybe even 4 interviews now in the pipeline, some of them already being done but not yet posted, for Ormiston Denes Academy in Lowestoft, which was our introduction really to Future First and to this kind of alumni work.
We did, actually. I had another write-in. Carol had a write-in last
fantastic
night. So I think we'll be up to 5, which brilliant. I think is it's a starting point, isn't it? It's enough. It's enough, I think, for a form tutor within the Ormiston Denes Academy to talk a class through what People on Work's all about, and to lead some discussion around. I did the last one that I did actually from Ormiston Denes. There was a guy called Nigel who I interviewed Wednesday evening. He's a teacher. And it was, in fact, it's the first interview that I've done with anyone who, I'm sure Nigel wouldn't mind me saying this. He had a pretty difficult relationship with education in his teenage years. Left school with little, if any, formal qualifications, but subsequently found some meaning in a military life and spent some time in Afghanistan. Went through some careers guidance in his mid-20s, which subsequently led to him finally doing GCSEs, and then moving on to do a PGCE, and ultimately by the time he's in his 30s, moving into primary teaching, which he absolutely loves, and I think he wished that he'd had some better quality careers guidance in his teenage years, and someone to turn the light on. And I mean, maybe I think his commentary was that he just wasn't ready. He was still a young boy till he was 25, and just wasn't ready to think about work and careers, and so maybe no one, even the best careers advice perhaps would have fallen on deaf ears, but his interview was a lot of the interviews that we've done, certainly our friends and family, and lots of people that we've talked to, or volunteers generally, have very positive relationships with work, and I wouldn't say they've worked it all out, but they've been reasonably successful. Not to say that Nigel's not successful.
No.
But his interview, that difficult start, and the honesty that he speaks with about that difficult start is amazing. I mean, it's
I think that's one of the things, and you told me about it. I've seen Nigel's interview with you, and it's brilliant, and it's going to be great when it goes up on the channel. And it's what we're talking about in these kind of reviews is what are we actually doing, and why are we doing it? And I think with an interview like that, and all the other interviews we've had a great for revealing what somebody's relationship with work is at the time that we're interviewing them, at the time we're asking them those 3 golden questions. But an interview like Nigel's is just beginning to kind of, it's like seeing land after, we're on this kind of ship in the middle of the ocean, and there's land. It might not be very close. We're not going to be there tomorrow, but we know it's there. And these kind of stories, as somebody who's worked in careers and careers related, or work and careers related areas for sort of 25 years, these are the stories that nobody shares and nobody tells, and they certainly don't discuss. They're certainly not discussed in school. So what you get in its place is you get the kind of and sanitize is probably the wrong word, but you get a very different version of the jobs or lines of work that people can do and why they do them. You might get a little tiny bit of an insight into why one person does something, but it's always, as you say, it's always a positive story. It's always, I love my work. It's always, I wouldn't want to do anything else. I feel so lucky to be able to do this. And that kind of misses out that personal story that individual might have had. And Nigel's puts that personal story there for everybody to see.
Well, yes. So I think careers guidance comes at a very practical, pragmatic level, and says, if you want to be a teacher, go and think about teacher training college, or if you want to be an engineer, go and do some maths and go and talk to some engineers. No one ever takes the time, to sort of step back and say, well, actually, look, you're going to leave school at 16, 18, 21, however old you're going to be. And bar a few holidays, the vast majority of your time, 9 till 6, Monday to Friday, for the rest of your life, for the next 40 years, is going to be dedicated to work. So actually, having a positive relationship with work is something that you should cultivate as quickly as possible. And I'm sure, I think this is probably the advice that Nigel would pass on to his younger self
Mm.
Or perhaps if he were to make an in-person visit back to Ormiston Denes and say to the kids, look, you're going to have to do something. You need to contribute. What sort of things do you think you'd be interested in doing? How do you want to contribute? And I think, we've talked about, temperament and how there's almost a before you go into careers, there's a discussion before that about contributing to society. And I think that's what Nigel took 10 years and a trip to Afghanistan to work out.
Yes, I think, there's a lot there to kind of think about, but I think, so how did it, after watching his interview, what did it look like to me? I completely agree with what you said, that probably doesn't matter what kind of careers, advice or guidance or education Nigel would have had, or a lot of us would have had when it was at school. It probably wasn't, we weren't ready for it for whatever reason. Or the our ability to connect with it at that time for whatever reason. Some of those reasons to do with us as individuals, others to do with the way the subject was presented. Yeah, so whatever happens, 14-year-old or 15-year-old me just wasn't listening, because in my case I was probably gazing up at the clouds or something, and wasn't really thinking about what I was going to be doing when I was 35, 45 or 55. And, so I think there's that going on. But I think, coming back to, so why do we talk about relationship with work? Well, if it's a relationship, it's something that's personal to you. So one size doesn't fit all. Two people could do the same job side by side. One of them can love it. One of them can, really dislike it intensely and want to do something else completely. So you have to understand at an individual level what's going on there in order for you to be suited or happy doing something or content to do something versus something that's going to potentially drive you up the wall. And because again it's a relationship that doesn't happen overnight. You could be lucky, you could get into doing something, or you could find yourself doing something that ticks all the boxes. Great, well done. And and also that's good to know. It's good to know that can happen. But with a story like Nigel's, and we've had lots of other stories like this on the channel, sometimes you have to kind of piece together that kind of, I like this or I don't like that, but this element is available here to me here, or it's available over here in a way that I never even thought about and never even saw coming. And so sometimes you can't replace the actual first-hand learning, doing something. There's another interview that's about to go live that you did with Julie Winard, and she's an independent consultant, but works with companies on sustainability and also transport. So how they can make better decisions that are better for the environment, better for the future. Now, she didn't start off doing that. She started off as an engineer, but over time, and as she was introduced to different things and learned about different things, things started to occur to her that some things were more appealing or she wanted to learn more about than others. And so she's ended up doing something that she couldn't possibly have imagined doing when she at the start. And I think that's true of Nigel as well.
It exists, to be fair. I mean, she's not.
It didn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. But knowing that it's a relationship, knowing that it's personal to you, knowing that you can learn more about it, and that learning contributes to you doing something that is going to be, you're going to be happier doing for the 3/4 of the day that you're awake and out of home or in home under lockdown, then that makes a difference. So so as we're going on, these kind of stories, individual stories, I read something the other day through an author that I really like, and an unrelated story, but within it there was this little line that said, the individual experience explains little. And you know, I was thinking about what we're doing with people on work, and we've got lots of individual experiences. So on their own, they're not going to be, you know, one interview is never going to be the answer to everything. However, you put together those individual experiences, and then you're getting somewhere.
For sure. And I think especially, I'd love the channel to develop to a certain extent where you could compare, well, you know, big, I don't know, perhaps what it's like being a police person, and then see what it's like, you know, if there are enough police people that contribute, officers that contribute, you know, to see what it's like being, you know, being a young or an old officer, being male or female officer, working in the north or in the south or in rural or in city centre, at that, you know, that patchwork of individual experiences, then all of a sudden becomes a really powerful testament to what policing is today.
Absolutely. And what it might be like for somebody new coming into it, and the reasons they might want to come into it. And again, it's not because any one of those experiences is going to be, you know, a tailor-made fit for the person thinking about becoming joining the police, becoming a police officer. It's that, they can see what it's meant to other people, and you know, ask for themselves whether that, or see for themselves whether that means anything to them. But and the other layer of that, it being a relationship and something that can grow and develop over time, is you see how people have ended up doing that work, and their own relationship with work. They've understood their own relationship with work more. That has helped them into doing something that that they end up, you know, maybe even enjoying. I had a question for you, actually, Tom. I've, you know, because you've been working, you know, it's been fantastic. You've done so many more interviews than I have, and I've got to get my skates on. But I've been, as I've been watching them, and you know, seeing kind of you asking the questions, it just made me wonder, you know, what have you been learning from interviewing all these people and hearing them answer our 3 golden questions and talk about their, you know, individual relationship with work?
Well, you know, my own experience of work, my own career hasn't really felt particularly well planned, and I've looked at friends and family, some of whom seem to have it all worked out and have had, apparently well planned careers. But I think asking these questions and having, you know, friends and family, but also then, you know, other people that we've interviewed, you know, through organisations, or you realise actually that the planned careers are a tiny minority of experience. Actually, you know, good fortune, good luck, chance plays such a big part in careers, and actually the word career itself is I think testament to the power of storytelling or rationalization. It tends to be a sequence of jobs with a certain commonality, that thread which leads to a specialization, because you find out you know, 2 or 3 things will come together, and then all of a sudden you're in a very particular niche. And I'd say that's the way, you know, most people's careers, you know, perhaps in their 20s and 30s, they end up doing 2 or 3 things that lead them then into that niche, and they can then yeah, maybe that becomes the career or
Yeah.
their specialism.
So career is what you're saying. The word career hides a multitude of, accident, disappointment, highs, lows, twists, turns, but I mean, there's a recent interview on the channel done by another career coach, actually, Sarah Rourke. She interviewed someone, Jason, and he's a lawyer. He trained as a lawyer. And when he finished his legal training, he did some work as a solicitor. He looked at his bar entry exam, and went down a number of different avenues, legal avenues, which you'd expect. So because he trained in law, wanted to be.
It's difficult to back out, isn't it, when you've done 3 or 4 years?
Interestingly, though, so he did the bits and bobs he did. He didn't really it wasn't quite right, but he needed to work, so he joined an insurance company just temporarily to pay the bills, kind of thing. But there were elements of insurance that he liked, and then somebody internally realized he had legal training, and said, well, we've got an in-house legal team, come and have a look at what we're doing, and then his career kind of took off as an in-house lawyer from there, and also an in-house lawyer in insurance and reinsurance. But to the outside observer, if you were saying to him, oh, what do you do? Oh, I work in law. I trained as a lawyer, or I trained in I had legal training, did some legal work, and I now work as an in-house lawyer for a large, one of the largest kind of insurance brokerages in the world. Now, that misses all of that kind of, all of the things that actually happened, and actually the point that there was a point where he stepped out of law completely, and had he not done that, he still wouldn't. There's a good chance he still wouldn't be working in law today. So even careers that seem kind of nailed down, this is what I did when I wanted to do this when I was at school. I studied it at university and then went on to study it for, do the professional qualifications. Even people who kind of followed that kind of linear, what seems unbroken linear path, can have a story in there that, it's almost like like Indiana Jones. He was on that mine cart. It was like a roller coaster, and there's this huge break in the rail, but he kind of goes over that break, the cart goes over the break in the rail, amazingly lands on the other side and isn't derailed. But, so if you were the person at the other end, you think, well, that must have been on the rails all the time. Well, no, it's taken this 30-foot leap over lava.
Yes, that's a very nice analogy, actually.
Yeah. So, and I'd encourage anyone under the age of 30 who hasn't seen the Indiana Jones trilogy of films, the originals, to perhaps give them a watch.
There's a bit of a division now between, I'm seeing, so we've got, and I'm thrilled about this, we've got a couple of days out with Callum actually to go and do some filming. Firstly,
on location films,
not next week but the week after, on location at Westminster Kingsway University, which offers, so I've been told, the best courses in the country for catering and hospitality. We've already got one of their former students, my cousin Ben Hale, who's on the channel.
Yeah, great interview, by the way.
No, he's good actually, isn't he? He didn't really go back. Well, he didn't join Westminster till he was, he must have been 25 or 26. So he had a bit of time sort of thinking about life, and now really enjoys. He works in events and does a great job. Really enjoys it. Anyway, so Westminster have asked us to go in and do a day's filming in there. Apparently, they've got a chocolate room, a patisserie. We're going to be, well, I hope we're well fed. It'll be just my luck. They'll be doing a COVID deep clean the day we arrive. We won't get anything to eat.
No, I'm sure they'll look after you.
And then in a sort of in the same family, actually, we've got in January a day out. Sorry, a day. I wish it was a day. A night out at Covent Garden Market. So we're going to go and see the flower market and the produce fruit and veg market down.
Fantastic.
It's near Vauxhall.
Okay. So you said that's a night market. So what time are you? What time is it?
To arrive at 3 o'clock and into 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 a.m. Okay.
The stall holders through to about 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then apparently we'll get to go for the breakfast at London's best kept secret, this all night cafe that
Fantastic.
I'm sure does a good full English fried breakfast.
Fantastic.
But I just wonder how, Nigel's interview was really interesting because he spoke so candidly about the difficulties really that he'd had in working out. And they're different sorts of interviews when you go along and someone's there in front of the camera talking about their job, their employer, and I think both interviews are equally valid, and or both styles of feedback are equally valid. But it's much easier for us, I think, to get the more sort of corporate interview, and those interviews with the people like Nigel that are just prepared to speak really openly and really frankly, they're like gold dust. I hope we can find some people like that.
I agree completely, and actually I think as time goes on, we're just going to get more and more. Nigel's a bit of a trailblazer for us, but we'll just get more and more. As we're working with more schools like Ormiston Denes, as we're working with Future First, as people watch the channel and I suppose get a little bit more comfortable sharing their own stories, and maybe comfortable sharing the stories that are kind of like Jason, like Nigel, like Ben, that are a little bit kind of less like the stories that are usually told, or that were told when they were engaging with work and careers advice and guidance at school, because I think that is where most people have a story like that. We're just not used to telling it.
Less gloss,
and more of the kind of the sanding and the rubbing down that has to take place to to make anything look glossy in the end.
Good stuff.
Brilliant. Well, look, lots still happening, and lots to come in December. Now we're coming out of lockdown. That gives us opportunities to do things like the visits, and lots to look forward to in the new year. We'll do this again next month to let everybody know, let people know what we're doing, what we've been doing in December. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions about People on Work, any comments about what we're doing, any examples of people that you want to see interviewed, if you want to be interviewed yourself, then drop us a line, comment on YouTube, and we've got WhatsApp and email, films@peopleonwork.com. We'll put up some links in the description of this video. Get in touch. It'd be great to hear from you.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure. Good to see you, Tom.